Hello students, this is Mr. Crane and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about problem solving. Now this is something I like to do for all my classes at the beginning of the semester, and it's based on a book called Teaching for Tomorrow by an author named Ted McCain. And what he does is he lays out four different steps that he likes to call the 4Ds of problem solving. And what I'd like to do is talk about those. Now, it's pretty clear that there's sometimes a disconnect on what students do in regards to problem solving when you're working on a project, in that a lot of times students will jump right into trying to just do the project that has been assigned by a teacher, instead of backing off a little bit and trying to figure out what the best way is to accomplish that. And so that's what I'd like to talk about a little bit. So let's go on with this discussion. Now, the first for the 4Ds of problem solving, what he has them listed as is define, design, do, and debrief. Now, these aren't just a linear movement through those. You don't just do one, then the other, and move through until you do the end. At any point in this process, what you're able to do is actually loop back around and see and redo certain parts of that process. And what I'd like to do is talk about each of these different steps in the process in a little bit more detail. Now, the first one I'd like to talk about is, if I can get it to go, there we go. The first one I'd like to talk about is the define step. Now, the define step is where you try to figure out what exactly it is you're solving, but it also helps you to understand what it is. Let's say if you're doing this for a boss or for a teacher, that you're trying to find out what is the requirements. What actually are you trying to really solve for? Now, this is also where you try to figure out what are the things that are going to be in your way, okay? Not only are you defining the thing you're trying to solve, but you're also defining what things you have to work around to make that solution, okay? So an example of this could be time. You might know that that you're trying to solve a problem, but there might be things that get in your way, like the amount of time you have to work on something, or the restraints you have, the materials you have to use, and a lot of different things like that. So what you want to do is sit down and define what it is exactly that you're trying to accomplish and what things are going to get in your way of doing that. And that brings us really to the next step, which is design. Now, the design step is understanding those constraints that you have and the things that might stop you, and creating an actual design or an actual plan to go and do something. And this is where you have to do a balancing act between both your imagination and the practicality. You might have the most wonderful ideas, but practically, you may not be able to fulfill all those wonderful ideas. So you have to figure out at what point you need to give up on some of your neat ideas and actually get the work done. Again, like I was talking about for time, you might have some great ideas to do an assignment for school, but you might be pressed for time and only have one weekend to accomplish it. Okay, and so you have to decide how much work can you get done in that time period. Now, another thing with design is deciding all the different ways that you can approach a problem and you can solve it. But you have to take into account all the ways that you are restricted, both with materials, your understanding of the topic, and a variety of other things. All in all, the whole idea of the design process is to distill all those great ideas down into one plan, so you then can figure out what it is you're going to do. And then the next step is the actual do step. Now this is where most students jump into the entire process. They just start doing some work. And a lot of times it can feel overwhelming because you're not quite sure where exactly to begin, what little things you need to do. And that's why the define step and the design step are so important, because you might help yourself by doing lists of things to know what new knowledge you need to figure out, what information you need to look up, what little tasks that you need to do beforehand that will allow you to complete a project. So it's real important to do those things. And then once you get to the do step, everything's in place and you can just do the work. And that way it won't seem so overwhelming because you actually have a plan in place and you know what order you need to do things in. You know how much time it'll take you to accomplish those things, and you can just move down the line and get it all done. Now the final step is called debrief. Now again, on all those other steps, at any point you can decide, I've made a mistake, I need to back up and re-look at what problem I'm trying to solve, or re-look at how I designed doing the problem. But when you get to the debrief, the whole purpose of the debrief step is to really test yourself and to test how well things went, what things went well, what things didn't go so well, and how you can improve them. Now, unfortunately, a lot of times in the debrief step, students just stop at this point. Your teacher gives you a grade, you sit there and say, okay, I got my grade, and that's it, you're done. In standards-based grading, one of the points of this is you can look at that and see, okay, this didn't match what I thought I would get. And what you can do is then go back and rework parts of what you did before to improve your understanding. And that's what the whole point of a debrief step is your ability to look back on what was accomplished and see what could be done better, and then go ahead and do that. And that allows you to cycle back through that whole design process. And this is really a quick representation of the 4 Ds of problem solving that will hopefully help you in all the work that we're doing with computers and design and a lot of other things in the classes that I teach. Thanks for listening.